So welcome to my video on pricing in preparation for your property. So I'd like to start off with just a condo. So if you have a condo, every day that your condo is not rented, this is what you're going to do. You're going to burn that $50 bill. If you have a house, grab two of those $50 bills and light them up. That's what happens if you don't have your property properly priced or prepared. So you're probably asking how I came up with those numbers. So let's just take a condo that rents for $1,100, just your average 2-bedroom condo on the west side, 2-bed, 2-bath. It'll rent for about $1,100. So every day that property is not rented, you're losing $37. And let's pretend your HOA fees are $285. And your annual taxes and your insurance are $52 each, about. If you add those up, each day your condo is losing $50. But let's not stop there. Let's pretend your unit is vacant for more than a week. This is an example of what your unit can look like. This condo that you're looking at was completely destroyed by homeless folks. They did about $12,000 worth of damage. When you add up all the flooring that they destroyed, the new paint, they destroyed all the countertops, they destroyed the cabinets, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. They could have gotten worse. They could have taken out the copper or burned the place down. So I hope that video freaked you out just a little bit because it happens all the time. We manage about 300 doors, and I would say probably once every 2 months we get a situation like this where the owner wanted another $100 and it cost him $12,000. And if you own a house with a pool, double those numbers. Before I get into pricing strategies, I think it's important that I address two myths that are reoccurring with new owners. So myth number one is a real popular one. More expensive properties attract better tenants. Absolutely wrong. There is no correlation between expensive properties and better tenants. We toss as many people in snobby neighborhoods as we do in the barrio. In fact, I would even argue that we probably toss more snotty tenants than the folks that live in the barrio. And we have data to prove it. And there's a map of all the properties we manage in Las Vegas. And so I'm telling you, there is no correlation between expensive properties and better tenants. We did find there's a correlation between desperate owners and naughty tenants. Desperate owners are always pressuring us to lower our standards because they need the income. The cost of a naughty tenant is usually financially painful. If you've been managing properties for some time, you'll know there's a huge cost in having a naughty tenant. If you lower your standards, your background checks, and so on, your probability of getting a naughty tenant increases. There's a longer turnaround when you get a new tenant. This costs you money and opportunity and occupancy. They can pay late or not at all. They can become desperate and attempt to sue you, or they'll just drag you into court for non-payment of rent or have a lot of lease violations. Either way, naughty tenants are not good to have. The other myth I'd like to go over is special features. A lot of owners think their special features are going to garner a lot more income. Wrong. Tenants are not going to pay $200 more per month in rent just because you have granite countertops or can lights or some fancy paint scheme. They're never going to see the inside of your special upgrades. Why? Because tenants search on price. They search on price, bedrooms, baths, garage, pool, and school district. They're not searching for can lights. If your unit is priced at $1,500 but their budget is $1,300, they're never going to admire all those little special upgrades that you did. The only exception to this may be if they're desperate because there's nothing else available. And I find that's very rarely true. Also note, they're likely to leave your place at the first opportunity. So to determine what price you need to put the property out, you should call your agent. But if you don't have an agent, you're going to want to either go to Zillow or some other place and look at some data. And the idea here is you want the property to be priced right in the middle. You don't want to be too far to the left or too far to the right of the other properties. Right in the middle. If you have your property priced right in the middle, you'll be doing just fine. So if the property is priced properly, you're going to get a lot of tenants to select from. More tenants equal better quality tenants because you have more to select from. You can be choosy. At the end of the day, you're going to get an excellent tenant who pays rent on time, takes care of your property, and will give you proper notice when they leave. There are a few scenarios that allow you to prepare to put your property on the market. So the first one we'd like to talk about is let's pretend that you just purchased your property. So when you're in escrow, that is when you need to start preparing to market your property, not after it closes. Generally speaking, you're cleared to go after you've reached your due diligence and appraisal. So about 10 days before you close, you should be putting that property on the market. So while you're in escrow, you need to be doing these things in order to get your property ready for your next tenant. You need to be getting rehab estimates. You need to be getting your photos, video, and more importantly, all the propaganda that's going to be included in your property description. Your goal is to have a tenant move in as quickly as possible. Another scenario could be your tenants gave you notice. If your tenants give you notice that they're moving out, that's when you need to put the property on the market, not after they've moved out. Probably the number one reason you should have video of all your properties is so that when your tenants give you notice, you can provide a video to prospective tenants. They don't have to drive across town and hassle your tenants to see what it looks like on the inside. The way we handle tenant-occupied properties is by only allowing approved applicants the opportunity to make an appointment with the existing tenant. It generally reduces it down to just one visit, and most of our tenants are pretty cool, and we sometimes will offer them an incentive with a gift certificate or something for the inconvenience. So let's say that your tenant's moved out or you just bought the place and you need to get the property prepared for your next tenant. I kind of want to go over some things that are super important. And I love sharing the story of an owner who once held off me showing his property for 2 months because he was waiting for a refrigerator. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is to get on this thing and only focus on these important items to get your property prepared. So in preparation, we're going to cover these items. We're going to cover the yard, the exterior, the kitchen, appliances, flooring, walls, and bathrooms. So when it comes to landscaping, you don't want anything fancy in that yard. You want a 12-year-old to be able to maintain it because that's who you're going to get, a 12-year-old. A 12-year-old is not going to take care of all these fancy plants. So what you want to make sure that you have is proper irrigation and very minimal vegetation. If you made the mistake of buying a property with grass, or you are moving out of a home that you had grass and you had love and pride in that grass, this is the time to say goodbye. That tenant is going to kill your grass. And if that tenant doesn't, the next one will. Grass does not belong in Las Vegas. It's going to die. So if you can't afford to take it out, that's okay. Just let it die a natural slow death. And then about tenant number 2, you can change it to desert landscaping. Moving on to the kitchen, you need to keep it simple and clean. When it comes to your countertops, if they are functional and clean, you're good. You don't need to be putting in granite countertops or all these fancy countertops. It's not going to get you any more money. When it comes to appliances, used ones are just fine. All you need to do is make sure your appliances are matching and are immaculately clean. When you do get a used refrigerator, get one that does not have a water or ice dispenser. Cap that water off in the back before your flooring gets destroyed. And if you have a condo on the second floor, this is going to save you a lot of money in the future. Your flooring should be bulletproof. Tile is recommended. You can do vinyl, but make sure it's the kind of vinyl that's resistant to water. Your faucets need to be in perfect condition, not fancy. You just want them to work. You don't want them to leak. And finally, and more importantly, the place must be clean, spotless, clean. Let's face it, Women make all the decisions when it comes to moving into a unit. And if she walks in there and she doesn't smell that it's clean and it doesn't look right, doesn't look clean, you're done. They're not going to rent your unit. When it comes to flooring, the ideal scenario is your entire house or unit is covered in tile. If that's not practical or you can't afford it, the next step up, or next step down, I should say, is vinyl flooring. And then the final worst thing you can put into any type of house or unit is carpet. The problem with carpet, of course, is it will be done after about tenant number 3. So over years, it usually pays to have just tile. It'll save you money in the long run. When it comes to paint, you want to do a semi-gloss, not a flat. And the reason why is because the semi-gloss is easier to wipe off. And of course, you want to use the same color that you use for all your other rental properties. We use Swiss coffee for a lot of ours. So if you don't have a clue, just go with Swiss coffee. You can do a two-tone paint for your molding, but again, it's not going to add any value to your income. Moving on to the bathroom, we want to make certain that all your fixtures are in excellent condition. None of them are loose or leaking or any of that kind of thing. Your shower doors and your tub need to be super clean and sparkly. You should have your caulking in all the areas that water can penetrate into the wall or floor. And of course, your toilet needs to be completely spotless. At the end of the day, that bathroom needs to sparkle and pop and be super clean. We are almost done with preparation. When it comes to some mechanical items, I want to cover some 4 basic things that can bite you in the long run. Angle stop valves, water heaters, air filters, and smoke alarms. Angle stop valves are probably the #1 culprit for destroying homes. I've seen one of these angle stop valves do $20,000 worth of damage to a house. If you have an angle stop valve that looks like this, where it's corroded around the edges and it's old and plasticky, change it out immediately before it's too late. And don't go with a cheap one either. Hire a plumber and get a really good high-end angle stop valve. If you have a water heater in a condo and you're on the 2nd floor, or if you have a water heater that's on the 2nd floor of a home, be absolutely certain that the water heater has a pan with a tube or pipe that comes out of it. When your water heater breaks, you want to be certain that that thing leaks properly outside and not on the unit below or destroying your home. I highly recommend that you buy a whole 12-pack of filters for your HVAC system. And the idea here is you want to make it super easy for your tenants to change out the filters, because as you know, if you don't change out the filters, your HVAC can be destroyed. Regardless of how you write up a lease, getting tenants to replace air filters is always going to be a challenge. Of course, your smoke alarms need to be functional, and it's also a good idea to have some spare batteries in the kitchen drawer for your tenants. You don't want to be the guy that goes to jail because you didn't have working smoke alarms. So I hope you enjoyed this video on pricing and preparation. We want to help you avoid burning 1 or 2 of these every day. Thanks again for watching.